She saw no reason to tolerate such nonsense. Any schoolboy of 12 years of age who should read the description of this garden and not discover that it has no geographical significance whatsoever ought to be reprimanded for his stupidity. But there were holdouts. Men much older than 12, and they were mostly men, were still speculating on Eden, uselessly or not. Darwin, Woodhull, and the pace of the modern world didn't stop the missionary explorer David Livingstone from declaring in 1871 that Eden existed at the source of the Nile, nor did modern science dissuade distinguished British General Charles Chinese Gordon from insisting in 1886 that the island of Praslin in the Seychelles off the east coast of Africa conformed exactly to the geography of Genesis. Even Victoria Woodhull was an Eden seeker of sorts. She did spend 2 hours and 16,000 words on the topic. She set out to prove that Eden wasn't a place on the map, but she did arrive at another figurative destination for Eden. In Genesis, declared Woodhull, Moses had written an allegory of the human body before it was defiled by sin. The 4 rivers all branch out from the stomach. What accounts for the amazing persistence of this quest? If the search for Eden is a centuries-long epic novel, the post-Darwin chapter is a major plot twist. For the first time, anyone seeking Eden did so in full knowledge that this garden did not mean the same thing to everybody. Was it the origin of species or paradise lost? No longer could seekers count on their audience's familiarity with Augustine, Josephus, and Calvin. Seekers might claim demurely that they just happened to read the names of those 4 rivers in Genesis, and much to their own surprise came up with the location of the Garden of Eden. But really, nobody stumbled upon the Pishon and the Gihon. Those who looked for Eden always had an urgent reason for doing so, even if they kept it to themselves. They would have to answer at least 2 questions. Not only where was Eden, but more important, what was Eden? And answer they would. Eden is part paradise, but only part. Really, the story is much bigger. Eden is supposed to tell us where we came from, what we've done wrong, and where we go from here. No wonder we keep looking. Ideas of Eden still flow on, long past Darwin, into the late 20th century and beyond. I set out to follow Eden as far as it would take me. The terrain I covered along the way, bizarre, heartfelt, desperate, had yet to be explored. So, this introduces that idea that everybody has an urgent reason, an obsessive reason, if you will, for looking for the Garden of Eden. And since every chapter in this book follows a completely different story, it's very hard to give an overall sense of that, or to give an in-depth sense of it. But what I wanted to do was just read the first sentence of most of the chapters in quick succession, so you see how radically different the ideas are. Are you ready? Yes. In the beginning, millions of years ago, the Lord God planted a garden northward in Eden. There was an abundance of sunlight, sequoias, and electricity, and all the biological conditions were most favorable. In the beginning, when the heavens had not been named, and likewise the firm ground below, the primordial waters of Tiamat mingled as a single body, so begins the Enuma Elish, the creation myth of the Babylonians, first written down in southern Mesopotamia nearly 3 million years before the Bible. 3 millennia before the Bible. Does it sound familiar? In the beginning, the Lord God created man in Adams County, Ohio, just north of Peebles and south of Chillicothe. In the beginning, all that Babylonian stuff happened. The tree, the garden, the serpent. But it didn't happen the way the Babylonians told it. It took one genius Hebrew scribe to get it right. In the beginning, when the heavens were like the white of an egg and the earth was like the yolk, God created Adam. Or, as the Chinese call him, Tian Huang. In the beginning, before they were selected by the Universal Father to usher in a utopian age on the planet Urantia, Adam and Eve were biologists. In the beginning, Adam didn't know what to do with himself in Eden. He just sat there all day, idle, naked, unemployed, under a Florida grapefruit tree. In the beginning, God created both man and nature, and he thought they would stay together forever. But man grew dissatisfied in paradise. Man wanted progress. And on the seventh day, while God rested, man took over. Man banished himself from the garden and has been trying to get farther away ever since. The end. So, you see the vast array. That's only the beginning, the taste of a vast array of ideas of the Garden of Eden. And this is the amendment, the sequel here, which is responses I got after the book came out. Excuse me. So, sometime back in June, when the book was first available on Amazon, I got all excited and I sent out an email announcement to everybody who'd been involved with it at some point, who had contacted for research, anything like that, and said, it's out, thank you for your help. And I got back this one-line email from an archaeologist. I'm not sure if it's really fair to call him an archaeologist. He's a TV archaeologist. He's like reality TV archaeologist, who I mentioned in the book very briefly. And so this is a little bit from our correspondence. June 21st, in response to the email. But we found it years ago. See the Turkish press at the time. It is in Turkey, of course. June 25th. Mazel tov. I'd forgotten we exchanged notes before you wrote the book and sent you an email through the site. Forgive me, my memory is not so good in my old age. Did you mention that we found the site? I thought that was July 25th. This is a little sad. He did order the book and awaited it and was disappointed. Your book finally arrived, and I was somewhat disappointed that you failed to include the satellite image and the maps of my proposed site. They are the proof. The rest is just commentary. And this I responded to. I said, Dear, thank you for your note. I appreciate your graciousness despite your disappointment with the book. If you are interested, I'd be happy to run an image of your satellite map with a more detailed explanation on my website. Meanwhile, best wishes, Brooke. August 1st. Dear Brooke, thank you for your kind note. I am only interested in the truth. To find that, one need only show the image and the phrase from the King James Bible, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became 4 heads. For the less informed, you might like to ask the question, where else in the world did a river arise in the lowlands and flow into the uplands? But then one would really need to be very uninformed to ask such a question. With kind regards. Oh. So that went on for a while. He's a very nice man. This one came a little bit later, after I was interviewed on the NPR or Boston Public Radio show On Point, which was really fun because they just zeroed in on Eden and they took all these callers who had fantastic ideas. The podcast is findable from my website, and I highly recommend it. So I got this email after that. Hi, Brooke. In 2004, I was a member of an expedition mapping the Mediterranean seafloor between Cyprus and Syria, looking for the remnants of the Garden of Eden, a.k.a. Atlantis. I am also a Urantia book reader. This book has long intrigued me. You may find the links below of comparative interest. First points out a recent discovery of an increase/enhancement of brain power in the human race 37,000 years ago. Second link is the Urantia book story of Adam and Eve, which states that they materialized 37,000 years ago, printed in 1955. Hardly proof of any sort, but certainly interesting. I like that one a lot. And this is my favorite response. It's very sweet that after this same NPR show, this elementary school teacher from Massachusetts wrote to me to say that he was inspired by hearing this conversation to write a sermon of sorts for a reunion of his summer camp, at the summer camp reunion chapel service. So he sort of sets out this whole scene, goes on for a while, but this is my favorite part. Let's be seekers lusting for paradise and determine if Camp Dudley could be the site of the Garden of Eden. Like the Garden of Eden, Dudley is ruled by a seemingly all-knowing and all-seeing God. I don't know about Matt and Marnie, but Willie sure seems to know the whereabouts and doings of any leader at any time of day or night. Like the Garden of Eden, Dudley sits among 4 great rivers. the Saranac, the Ausable, the Bouquet, and our favorite, Stacy Brook. While we don't have a wall enclosing our garden, there is another famous border, the blue line, that delineates the edge of the Adirondack Park that is our summer playground. Could the yum-yum tree on the upper field be the tree of life? Or the tree of knowledge of good and evil? After all, once in a while, someone is tempted by one forbidden fruit or the other, partakes of it, and must be expelled from this place, at least temporarily. If one were searching for the physical location of Eden, one could do a lot worse than this spot. Those are my favorites. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I'm really happy to be able to share this with you, and I hope that you guys have questions for me, because I love answering questions. Anyone? Yes, Emily.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Emily.
I would love it if you would tell us a little more about one or two specific Edens that you especially like to talk about.
Ooh. Do you have any requests?
Well, it's cheating a little.
Florida? You have a request for Florida? Okay. Florida was a 1950s Garden of Eden theme park that was built and publicized by this guy who is a retired lawyer and believed that he had a special numerological system that counted the number of leaves on a particular species of Florida tree and told him that it was the tree that Noah used to build his ark. And so naturally, if Noah used it to build his ark, the Garden of Eden had to be somewhere nearby, and he worked backwards from there. The picture's too small for you. He looks a lot like my grandfather. He's got these wire horn-rimmed glasses and very white hair. So that's Florida. The park is no longer there, but it's actually the endangered special species of tree, the Torreya yew tree, is now protected in a local state park. So you can still go and see the tree that Noah used to build his ark. Here.
How about Iraq?
Iraq is like a third of the book, because so many people, clearly because of the Tigris and Euphrates, think that the Garden of Eden is in Iraq. And, truth be told, if you look at it from a very, the Garden of Eden story came from an older Babylonian story. That much is pretty clear. No one can link it really directly back, but they know it came from that part of the world. And so if the garden was a real place that was described by the early Babylonians, it presumably would have been within their, known world. My favorite place, which I have not been to in this book, but which I've spent a lot of time thinking about, is a small town called Gurna, or Kurna, at the crossroads of the Tigris and Euphrates in southern Iraq, near the marshes, where there's a tree that's dead, but it is known to be the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that Eve ate from. And people come from miles around and have for years, and this tree is grown and dies, and when it dies, it gets replaced eventually. So it's an ongoing shrine, sacred tree that's been through a lot in that part of the world, and is actually a really, biblical literalism is actually a very inspiring story and a wonderful place, whether it's or not.